Welcome to An Exile. We reported back last year that the Twitter files expose was the single most important news event regarding politics of last year. Here's Boebert.
Mr. Roth, while at Twitter, how many meetings did you have with the FBI?
I couldn't say for sure, but I would
More
say
than 10?
That's a
More than
reasonable
20?
estimate. I couldn't say for sure.
Why were Twitter executives meeting with the FBI? So these violations are extravagant.
How many FBI agents worked at Twitter while you were there?
I don't believe any active FBI
Former
agents.
FBI agents, how many worked there while you were there?
I'm aware of perhaps 2.
Well, we know of at least 9.
You don't need to have formal collusion when you hire an FBI guy and he's talking to the FBI and they're sharing information and sharing influence. That's what's at stake on this hearing. It's going to get bigger. It's going to blow the doors open on all social media. Just watch. This is the single most important event in American politics today.
Now, I want to remind you, Mr. Roth, that you are under oath. Did the FBI ever ask you to do anything that was illegal or questionably legal?
I'm not a lawyer, but certainly not to the best of my recollection or knowledge.
Now, from the hearing that I've been a part of today, it's almost impossible to tell where the FBI ends and where Twitter begins. We have Mr. Baker here, a former FBI agent, and there seems to be a revolving door between the FBI and Twitter itself. Even Mr. Baker said that there was no collusion with the federal government and Twitter. But Mr. Baker, that's you. You are the collusion between the federal government and the FBI. Mr. Roth, Ms. Gaddy, did either of you approve the shadow banning of my account at Lauren Boebert? Yes or no?
No, I did not.
Not to the best of my recollection.
Well, let me refresh your memory, because on March 12th, 2021, and Mr. Roth, I know you looked at it because Fascist Twitter 1.0 had a public interest exceptions policy, which means for members of Congress to be shadow banned, it had to go before you, Mr. Roth. So I'll ask again, did you shadow ban my account? Yes or no?
Again, not to the best of my recollection.
So the answer is, Mr. Roth, yes, you did. I found out last night from Twitter staff that you suppressed my account for this tweet. It's a freaking joke about Hillary Clinton being angry that she couldn't rig her election.
Going after humor is one of the most popular ways that mainstream media censors only one side and not the other. One side is allowed to make jokes. They're allowed to say anything they want about Trump. Kathy Griffin was allowed to hold up a bloody severed head artwork of him, and it was not seen as a threat. But the other side cannot make in-kind jokes because their jokes are taken seriously. That's all they have to do is say this joke is not acceptable. And that's what happened to Boebert.
It's a joke, but in response, being the sinister overlords that you all are, you placed a 90-day account filter so I could not be found.
This is where it's key that Twitter was involved with the FBI, because it's not just a private company doing this. Now it's the U.S. government going after politicians for their free speech and affecting election results. That's illegal.
And now we see here that Twitter staff said the visibility filter on my account excluded me from top searches, prevented notifications for non-followers, and much more. This is considered an aggressive visibility filter. You silenced members of Congress from communicating with their constituents. You silenced me from communicating with the American people over a freaking joke. Election interference? Yeah, I would say that that was taking place because of you four sitting here. The Hunter Biden laptop story was suppressed. A sitting member of Congress was suppressed. A sitting president was banned from Twitter. You know, I bet that Putin is sitting in the Kremlin wishing he had as much election interference as you four here today.
What Twitter did with the FBI on widespread political opponents is Putin's wet dream. When these people say that they're against you-know-who over in Russia, they're worse. I could give you thousands of examples, and my own Twitter account personally was shadow banned.
We've heard about threats to democracy. Well, what about shutting down a duly elected member of Congress? This is fundamental to our nation's governance, and you all attacked that very foundation.
Here's Luna from Florida bringing down the hammer.
JIRA is,
Did you ever speak to government officials on JIRA regarding taking down social media posts?
again, not to the best of my recollection.
Can you explain to me why the federal government would ever have interest in communicating through JIRA, mind you, a private cloud server, with social media companies without oversight to censor American voices? I want to let you know that this is a violation of the First Amendment, and the federal government is colluding with social media companies to censor Americans. Mr. Chairman, I ask for unanimous consent to submit these graphics into record. And Mr. Roth, I'm going to refresh your memory for you. This flowchart shows the following federal agencies, social media companies, Twitter, leftist nonprofits, and organizations communicating regarding their version of misinformation using JIRA, a private cloud server.
By the way, I've used Jira when we did animation production on VeggieTales. I would communicate back with DreamWorks, the mothership from here in Tennessee, using Jira. It's illegal to do with the government because there's no oversight, because it's buried in private between the government and a private company like Twitter. To go against public candidates like Boebert, Margie Taylor Greene, and Trump.
They were all communicating on a private cloud server known as JIRA. Now, the screenshot behind me, which is an example of one of thousands, shows on November 3rd, 2020, that you, Mr. Roth, a Twitter employee, were exchanging communications on JIRA, a private cloud server, with CISA, NASS, NASED, and Alex Stamos, who now works at Stanford and is a former security officer at Facebook, to remove a posting. Do you now remember communicating on a private cloud server to remove a posting?
They're all under oath. And Yoel Roth keeps saying he has no memory, and so they bring up his actual Twitter correspondence showing it.
I wouldn't agree with the characterization.
I don't care if you agree. This is your stuff. Yes or no, did you communicate with a private entity, the government agency, on a private cloud server, yes or no?
The question was if I
Yes or no? Yeah, I'm on time. Yes or no?
Ma'am, I don't believe I can give you a yes or no.
Well,
answer
I'm
to
going
that
to tell you right now that you did, and we have proof of it. This, ladies and gentlemen, is joint action between the federal government and a private company to censor and violate the First Amendment. This is also known, and I'm so glad that there's many attorneys on this panel, joint state actors. It's highly illegal. You are all engaged in this action, and I want you to know that you will be all held accountable. Ms. Gaddy, are you still on CISA's Cybersecurity Advisory Council? Yes or no?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Here's Rep. Higgins with the real news.
You, ladies and gentlemen, interfered with the United States of America 2020 presidential election, knowingly and willingly. That's the bad news. It's going to get worse because this is the investigation part. Later comes the arrest part.
I'm Doug in Exile.